wouldn't say yes, she wouldn't say no. All she'd do was sit and sew, sit and sew, sit and sew. All she'd do was sit and sew. Oh, my little lonely girl, don't you guess you better be making your wedding dress, wedding dress, wedding dress. You better be making your wedding dress. It's already made and trimmed in green, prettiest dress you've ever seen, ever seen, ever seen, prettiest dress you've ever seen. Well, it's already made and trimmed in brown, stitched all around in a golden crown, golden crown, golden crown, stitched all around in a golden crown. Well, it's already made and trimmed in red, stitched all around on a golden thread, golden thread, golden thread, stitched all around on a golden thread. You better be making your wedding dress, wedding dress, wedding dress. You better be making your wedding dress. While it's already made and trimmed in white, gotta get married on a Saturday night, Saturday night, Saturday night. Gonna get married on a Saturday night. She wouldn't say yes, she wouldn't say no. All she'd do was sit and sew, sit and sew, sit and sew. All she'd do was sit and sew. Oh, my little lonely girl, don't you guess you better be making your wedding dress, wedding dress, wedding dress. You better be making your wedding dress.
Jeeve agus Fulcherove go Laura Lerlin Liggy. Good evening and welcome to Sligo Central Library for the November edition of The Word, a Sligo Libraries event in collaboration with the BA in Writing and Literature at ATU Sligo. We are delighted to be joined by Maggie Armstrong, author of the short story collection Old Romantics. Maggie has been shortlisted for the Irish Book Awards for Short Story of the Year and Newcomer of the Year, and shortlisted for the Kate O'Brien Prize. Maggie Armstrong's work has been published in the Dublin Review, The Stinging Fly and Banshee, among other anthologies. And welcome also to those watching online and to the Armstrongs in Sligo and further afield. Maggie will be in conversation with Elske Rahill, author of the novels Between Dog and Wolf and An Unravelling, and the short story collection In White Ink. Elske teaches on the BA in Writing and Literature at ATU Sligo. The music this evening is by Claudia Schwab. Claudia is a Sligo-based violinist, singer, yodeler, and composer who is originally from Austria. Claudia has performed on numerous recordings and collaborates with local, national, and international artists. Our conversation this evening will be followed by an audience Q&A. We have a roving mic on hand for your questions, and this evening's open mic is facilitated by ATU Sligo student Dean McMorrow. So I'd like to hand over now to Elske Rahill. Enjoy the evening.
Thank you so much, Patricia, and thank you, Maggie, for being here with us this evening. It's a real joy for a number of reasons. One, because I'm a big fan of your work, and another, because I have a lot of questions to ask you that I haven't asked you about it. But you're from Sligo, you're from here in Sligo. And just to give people a kind of an overview, Maggie worked in journalism for a long time. Sorry, I blanked there. In journalism for a long time. You've been a restaurant critic, you've been a theatre critic. And these stories were published first in 2024 by Tramp. And now they are published in Canada and distributed all across the US. I'll get the name of the publishing company wrong.
It's Biblioasis.
Biblioasis,
yeah.
by Biblioasis. That was last March 2025. So congratulations
Thank
on
you.
that. And it's well deserved. So a lot of people have said wonderful things about the book. And I think one of the, I could read you the reviews, but you can read the copy of the book, the front of the book yourselves. But I think one of the things that people pointed out was that it's an incredibly enjoyable read, dealing with quite depressing things. So sort of series of unfortunate events for, I'd say, up till, well, throughout in many ways, depending how you see it. But one of the, and I think that's absolutely true, and that's partly just the prose and that kind of lightness of touch, and that not quite, I suppose there's a kind of a sense always of context where you're almost acknowledging that the character is taking seriously something that in the broader scale of things is not that serious, which I think is beautifully done without disrespect to the character. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, that's my spiel. But one of the comments I thought was most interesting was this word audacious, that it's an audacious collection. And I've been thinking about that a lot because there are a number of ways in which it's audacious. And one thing that I haven't read people saying and that I found with it was that as a woman writing about women and relations with men and family and that whole structure, in some ways you've done something not very PC. So we see this character, Margaret, and she's sort of trying to navigate the modern world, but she still has this kind of blueprint of, but a prince will come along and save me and everything will be okay, or turns out work's really boring. Like, there must be a better way. Maybe there's a rich man around. And you kind of, it's kind of heartbreaking. And I'd say that's maybe for the first 7 stories, that kind of Margaret's sort of tragic interactions with these terrible men. I was going to say for the most part, but pretty much uniformly terrible men. And I'm wondering, with the title New Romantics, like, is that something you set out to do? First of all, I could be completely wrong, and please contradict me if that's not something that you want the book to say. But yeah, was that the intention setting out, or was it these kind of individual little truths that kind of culminated in this commentary on like romanticism. I think the title is so perfect, Old Romantics. Like it's so...
Thanks. I
Yeah.
actually thought of that title on the way to Sligo one day. It just popped into my head. I don't know why. But you're right.
But it fits. I think it fits so beautifully.
She has a bad case of sort of Disney-itis.
Yeah.
Of somebody's going to come and rescue me and take care of all my troubles and pave the way in gold. When life gets problematic.
But she's not written as... She's not a fool. Like, she's a highly intelligent woman, very kind of observant, pithy, critical, but yet you're right, she suffers from this case of Disney-itis, which I think is a really good way of phrasing it, where, I think one of the stories that I love, and that I think maybe epitomises the best... Are we okay, Mike-wise? Yeah. Okay. Is that one, the Dublin marriage? So for context, it's Maggie, not Maggie, Margaret, Margaret, who moves in with, shares a house with somebody, and she begins this fantasy where he's kind of her husband, and the whole thing sort of takes off. Would you be interested in reading a little bit?
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah. And it didn't. I don't know if there's any intention on. I simply just sat and wrote these stories. I didn't know how they were going to turn out. This particular one, the Dublin marriage, is highly drawn from what I know. I'm from Dublin, and it's set on a street where I used to live, and the protagonist is called Margaret. But I do remember moving into this very badly built little house, and at a very particularly delicate moment in my growing up phase, which was a very long phase, by the way. There was a very arrested development, because I don't know, like my father would have mended my bicycle punctures until I was about 30, and my mother would have done my laundry until around then as well. So, for some of us, like, it just takes longer to get our feet off the ground. But I do remember moving into this house, and I was 30, and there was a sign outside that said no dumping on the just on the road. I just thought that was like a great piece of wordplay from Dublin City Council that inspired this story. Okay, I'll just
please,
jump in. Okay, we'll give it a whirl. I met my husband at a house viewing one Saturday in the spring when we were young. I was locking my bike to a pole when he came towards me, squinting through his thick black cartoon hero glasses. "Daniel," I said. "Margaret?" A mutual friend had introduced us over email, suggesting that we find a place together since we'd both been searching for so long. We joined the queue to view the property on that very pleasant red brick terrace in the Liberties, up to the doorway where an estate agent with a clipboard was casting friendly glances at the crowd. I was never exactly physically attracted to Dan, though I do remember him with an obstinate tenderness even now. His bright, startled animal eyes behind the frames, black Shavian beard growing thickly around his features, bobbling navy duffel coat with the buttons done up around what looked like an expansion of waistline. Walking around the rooms with him, I underwent an enormous kind of a transformation. I became completely new and shy and full of possibility, lingering at a bathroom door or nodding at the Erstad's bronze claw feet of the bathtub, which still merited eager nodding for being clawfoot. Soft light stole in. I sank into the bathtub while he made a pair of cocktails. He marinated chicken pieces, diced cucumber for salads. He was a bon viveur, luxurious. Everything he did was for my benefit. I was a wife, productive, dominant, loved. He never missed a day of work, but I missed a lifetime, going back to bed to write my little stories between sheets that needed putting in the wash. That morning I met Dan, I started to imagine things, believing they were real. There was no threshold between the disparate realms, between the now and wished for, just a breezy opening into what was better, what was happiness, what was the very least you could expect from being born.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The other thing that I think is really interesting about this, and I really want to ask you about, is I made that slip where I called the character Maggie.
You blew my cover, Elske, already, so early in the evening.
Because she's called Margaret. And about how many, 7 or 8 of the stories are in the first person?
Mm-hmm.
And I find that sort of fascinating, that you're not pitching this or selling it as autofiction. It is clearly fiction. As in, that's how it's marketed, and in many ways I can see why. But I'm interested in what you have to say about it, because you've chosen to give her. It is a uniform character throughout, and you've chosen that name for her. I'm just wondering about that choice and why. It kind of works for me. I'm not criticizing it, but I'm just wondering what the.
I mean, I guess to write fiction, it's kind of an underworld. It's kind of a shadow place, and it was just. It was somewhere you could be much freer and more deviant, maybe, to hide beneath this pretend veil. And I associated writing nonfiction maybe with more of the journalism I was doing, which very much had to be very factual and fact-checked and accurate, and you needed to have dates correct. And on the side, very secretly, I was writing stories that I never thought would be published, and they were just for my own amusement. And then you become addicted to a particular form, and you want to master it, and you think every time an idea comes to mind that you're going to execute it really quickly. And I guess, it's just another form of arrested development that I haven't moved on to writing nonfiction in the way I'd like to. But I really, it's really wonderful that it's now in a university, that there's a course that is completely designed around nonfiction. It's really come back into its own as a craft, and I would prefer reading it, I think,
to writing it. But the choice to make her Margaret, I find that fascinating. Was that her working name all the way through, or was that something you decided at the end that you were going to string them in together?
No, I just tacked it on because they didn't have any names, any of the characters.
Okay.
And I guess the first thing that people ask you when you write a story is, who's that about? And who, is that your man from, or why didn't you put me in it? There was a third flatmate who I lived with who was really annoyed at being axed from that story, but he didn't have any role to play in it. But he, it's the tension between what's real and what's not real, and that tension is really interesting. And I just thought that just to sort of save everyone the trouble of asking, I just give her my own name, and then that doesn't mean that any of it's true.
It's actually
either.
true, yeah.
No, it's all completely distorted beyond recognition, so it has no bearing really on reality anymore. But she does share, my circumstances and some of the peccadillos that I would be.
It occurred to me reading that story and the name, My Success, that's the name of the story. Though that, just to summarize, do you want to tell people quickly, because I'm doing all the talk. I feel like I'm doing too much talking. If you tell them what My Success is about, and then I'll say what I wanted to say.
So My Success is a story that's set in a corporate law firm, in which the protagonist is given a job just to sort of keep her out of trouble for a summer, and given a wage, and given a job with the catering department, or the tea ladies. And she then sort of just goes to the bathroom one day during work just to see what it's like, and then doesn't leave the bath, just stays there every day, sort of curled up in the fetal position, just waiting for the day to be over. And I guess, and she gets paid to do that. But I guess that would have been set during the Celtic Tiger, when there was a lot of money flying around, and it was very easy to get a wage like that, and you could be a dreamer, and you could be completely detached from capitalism and still benefit from it at the same time. And I guess I've always really loved a story by Herman Melville called Bartleby the Scrivener, which is about just a very, very low-wage scrivener who sits in a legal firm, he's a legal clerk, and he just sits. It's a long, I think it's a novella, and written in the 19th century sometime. And he just sits there, and he kind of sits eating at his desk without doing any work, and they eating like nuts.
Ginger nuts?
Ginger nuts,
yeah.
And they ask him to leave after time, and he says, I'd rather not. And then they ask him, they tell him he has to leave, and he says, I'd rather not. And he just stays there. And he is just the symbol of kind of moral decay, that he's not part of anything. And yeah, I guess I felt a bit like Bartleby the Scrivener. So I wrote that.
Am I making this up, or did he work in the lost letter department? Have I made that up? Or is that part of the story?
That could well be. I mean,
I might have that wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a long time since I've reread it or read anything. Yeah.
Which we'll talk about now in a minute.
To all books.
But what it occurred to me reading that story, that the character Margaret is pretty naive, and these things happen around her that we as readers understand a little more than she does. So I love that bit where she's in work and she sees her dad. So Daddy gets her the job, and they sparkle at each other. There's a lovely line where they look at each other, and she's like, "That's my daddy," and it's lovely. But she's working with the tea ladies, and she's a total waste of. They just want her out of the way. You know, this kid's been given this job, and she doesn't really know what she's doing, and they're much more efficient without her. But they're kind of kind to her and like let her sit with them sometimes. And they talk. Someone's husband's has he been let off? Was that
he's been laid off?
Laid
yeah,
off.
He's been fired.
And she's like, "What's that?" And they explain to her what laid off is. And there's this character that comes in at the end, and they all have to stay. The tea ladies all have to stay late, even though they have kids and lives and husbands who've been laid off that day. Because what is the phrase? He hasn't had a bite to eat, or he hasn't
had a thing to eat.
He hasn't had a thing to eat. So this businessman comes along, and he doesn't like have the wherewithal to feed himself, you know. But the story is told in such a way that we're not sure if Margaret understands the significance of these things. You know, she's sort of, it's kind of her naivety that is interesting. And I wondered if you had undertaken to actually market this as a collection of non-fiction essays, would you have lost that? You know, would you have had to bring in the kind of the I persona and the analytical mind and the insight that your I narrator, as in you being her, has? Yeah. Because I think maybe because it's fiction, you had that little bit of freedom to kind of look at her.
Yeah, for that,
you know, at the same time.
Play. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can't account for anything that I've witnessed in my life. The only way of processing it is through fiction for me. And I often feel like that I was just a bystander, you know, in my own life, it's just a sort of an interesting place to be. And does that sound a bit mystical? It's
no,
not
I don't think so. And I think it's a lot of writers feel like that.
I think some of us process things long after they've happened, and the rest is just a sort of a strange daze.
Yeah, and I think we have that sense actually of her kind of going through life, and we're sort of seeing this, but she's kind of not quite made sense of it yet. And her blunders with terrible men are half hilarious, half just tragic and upsetting, you know. So there's one story you said you might read for us, Baked Alaska, which is kind of seasonally appropriate.
Okay, I'd love to. Yeah.
might need to introduce it a little bit.
I'd love to introduce a little bit. So this story is called Baked Alaska, and which is one of the really nice desserts that no one ever makes anymore.
They're not that nice.
No.
I had one. I was very excited.
I mean, it involves putting a block of HB ice cream onto a sponge cake, then whipping eggs. Like, it's the most
like a meringue,
dedicated
isn't it?
of homemakers would do this. My mother has never made baked Alaska for her children, but I definitely sampled it in other houses.
In houses?
In other friends' houses, and begged her to make it, but she never did. So it is set in a Wicklow inn, and the title, which I keep going on about, but it was my editor in Tramp Press, Lisa Cohen, who suggested it, because, and this is a spoiler, it involves a man sleeping outside, sleeping rough in the cold, kind of, and she loved that because he's not a very nice man, and she loved the idea of just this block of ice being exposed overnight, kind of almost like a punishment for his bad behavior. And yeah, can I just mention Tramp, that, you know, I never would have had any book, or, you know, I think I would just be floating around writing for myself if it weren't for Lisa Cohen and Sarah Davis Goff, who came to me to, you know, with this idea for a collection.
Yeah.
So, and they've just been wonderful editors and very wild-hearted and daring publishing team. So this is set in a festive season, and apologies for being a little bit early with that. On the 27th of December, she replied, actually, I'm just going to go back a page, sorry. On Christmas Eve, she'd sat on a curbside on Dawson Street with her bags of presents spread around her, and into her phone typed, "Not only do I not love you, I don't even like you." She paused and her chest seized before she added, "Leave me alone forever." And she sat in the sleety cold, reading back through all their texts, the block paragraphs of his voluble accusations, alternating with her neatly edited retorts, her spicy, prim dismay. It was -2 degrees, and she did not feel safe. The shadows of ruthless passers-by bore over her, and the corners of boxy shopping bags swung in her eyes as her ass cheeks froze on the cold stone. Margaret pressed send, then put up her furry hood and fled the streets. Their love was over, and it had been only lies. On Christmas Day, she kept her phone switched on for discipline, with the added benefit of torturing him. On St. Stephen's Day, she turned back on her phone to see 3 new emails from him. One sad, belated Groupon offer for ice skating, now expired. A press release for the pantomime subject-headed "Matinee with Me." Then a sonnet typed into the body of his email and evidently authored by him in some dismal late-night rage. The couplet ended with the words "dishonor" and "suicide." On the 27th of December, she replied, because no one should feel like throwing themselves out a window on Christmas. "Hope you'd a good break," she wrote. "Awful," he wrote. "I'm sorry," she wrote, not knowing exactly what for. It could be any number of things. On the 28th, they texted. Then he phoned her, and they talked through everything. The whole nightmare. It all came out unstoppered. Very soon they were laughing, and the season became a beautiful snow globe, trapping them and shrinking them in its plastic blizzard. Now we find the former soulmates on the 29th of December in a hotel with buffalo horns displayed in the creaking mahogany hallway. Something about the Boer War, the concierge had told walls, and sullen photographs of aristocrats in sporting gear. Why had she come all this way?
Great.
Thank you.
So I hope people can see what I mean about how that is a fiction voice.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? That kind of, especially, you know, we see them doing this and that, and yeah. Anyway, I'm trying to keep an eye on time, and there's so much I want to ask you about. So one is the pram in the hallway question, right? Because I know you're a single mother of 2 young kids. And you wrote this when you were already a mother of babies.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yeah,
So it's
all of these stories I wrote with a very small baby. And then another very small baby.
So I wonder if you could talk to me about was having children a kind of a catalyst for this, because we get that character kind of growing up, and we get her, what would you say, 3/4 through the collection.
Mm-hmm.
She has her first baby, and there's a sort of a shift. Is that part of why you wrote the book, or is it an obstacle to writing? Is it part of it? Like, what's?
I think it's both, but I do think when you have a lot of time on your hands and very few responsibilities, for me, everybody's so different. I needed to have a forced seclusion, to sit and write. And I didn't have a chance to leave the house very much, so that's when it happened for me. Everyone is so different. None of them is the right way, but certainly I had a great sense of wanting to leave something behind me, wanting to make some mark, and wanting to get out of the house to accomplish something beyond what was a magical experience of motherhood and domesticity. At the same time as it hit, I wanted to escape it and to go further. Yeah, I mean, it's so different. Was that what it was like for you? I mean, did you write before you became a mother, or was it after?
I did, but my first book was when I wrote my first, or I finished my first book, certainly and I certainly wrote more than ever before with babies and with my first son. But that was, I don't know if this is the same thing, but that was kind of like I thought I would drown if I didn't, because it could very well not happen at that point. And now you've 2 young kids. What's it like trying to write the next book? Is that help or a hindrance, or what's the?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting setting in which to write, with kind of chaos everywhere, and they're not helpful. They're not like, I think Carl Ove Knausgaard would talk. He's the Norwegian, the incredibly beautiful and distinguished Norwegian author of My Struggle. He writes his books with his kids coming in and out of his study and things like that, and I can't relate to that at all. I mean, my primary role is to be their mother, and I'm a very sort of a scatty secretary to their social lives, and yeah, I mean, I think when you become a mother, you should actually go into a witness protection program and not have any outside life, and just, that would be perfect. And then you could just write and look after them, and that would be all that you need to do.
Because at the same time, like, I do think some of the most beautiful writing in this book is inspired by that experience. But yeah, in practical terms, is it something that you're kind of constantly trying to juggle?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's impossible, and you just have to write at any moment of the day that you can. I believe Raymond Carver wrote in his car while he was waiting for his kids to finish their sort of sporting activities.
But he was drunk all the time, right?
He was probably drunk as well.
Also
drink driving and parenting.
And writing in the car. Yeah, and I know a couple of writers who say they do that. I can't do that either. That kind of, I don't know when you
become very familiar with the tools on your phone. The Notes app, the Microsoft Word is now on a phone. So that was like, I don't know, Dylan going electric or something, the moment that I realized that you could actually write the story
on the phone,
on your phone. Have you? Yeah, Word. You can use it on your phone. Yeah,
top tip. Because we have students here today and a lot of kind of young writers, this is probably not the most exciting question for you, but I think it might be interesting for us. If you can talk us through the kind of the trajectory of your career, because you did, you were working in the world of words, let's say, for a long time before you were published. And you mentioned Tramp, but maybe if you can tell us that kind of story in a little more detail of how
I'd love to.
you got published.
I worked as a journalist, and that could be very frustrating for somebody who wants to make stuff up. And it's it's also a little dangerous because you shouldn't be embellishing what you're writing in terms of interviewing people and trying to report on current events. So
what led you to journalism? Why did you? I mean, did you always feel you wanted to write fiction, or was this just one of the?
And I was a very flowery journalist, which is I was the worst journalist, and I don't write any journalism anymore. And no, I mean, like I was a dilettante. A lot of writers, like I mean, I'm in awe of Claudia and of all performers, any musical performers, but I would have loved to have, like, I always had a desire to perform, and it was a very frustrated desire, and then I realized that you could read your work aloud, and that's how it started for me. I would go to like open mic stuff and read, and you get this amazing sense of fear, and there's a tension in the room, and I think the tension is always about the audience is worried, are you going to mess this up? Because you're standing and you're confronting a crowd for the first time, and reading, you feel vulnerable, and it's exciting. So that's through kind of fringe events, open mic, and then through publishing, finally, there's a lot of rejection letters, and then there's one day you get a kind of acceptance, and that's.
I think you mentioned when you were a journalist wanting to write book reviews and getting sent a very specific type of book.
Romance fiction.
Yeah, romance fiction. So they used to send a woman
with enormous font.
Which I thought was quite interesting, just in terms of what you learn from these industries. And you were a food writer as well, and I think we kind of, I think you can always tell when someone knows food from their writing. I think it's really
it's strange to think about that. I mean, like, I would not be on nodding terms even with my former self. If I met her on the street, I would cut her dead. I can't believe I used to walk into restaurants and criticize the food, like, to think of the horror of that. Like, it's such a beautiful thing to be handed a plate of food, and I wouldn't.
Where you mean? Do you think? Where you mean?
Yeah, horrible.
Where are you?
Yeah,
okay.
I was a jumped up, like, little shit. Yeah, no, awful. So I'd hate to read any of it. I'd hate to go to any of those restaurants and have to see anyone who's. I mean, like, people work in kitchens. It's really long hours, really hot, really difficult, and then you have some like Trinity student coming in and like trying to slander their restaurant and to like discourage people from going to it in a really struggling, difficult industry. Well, I mean, like, restaurant, like, it's extraordinary. Like, I wouldn't even be allowed into a restaurant now because of having children. So I do think that these are such like the sacred settings, to be, and
like a kind of a privilege to have been.
Yeah, so privileged, somebody to make food for you. It's like the most beautiful thing that someone can do.
So you were doing those jobs, and you started doing readings at open mics and that kind of thing, and putting together some stories, and you did start sending them out to places. So you've been published in, I think Michelle or Patricia introduced you saying, you were published in Banshee, you were published in Stinging Fly, and you did at one point send stories to Tramp. And tell us the story of that.
Yeah, so and I think maybe about 5 years ago, I would have sent a bunch of stories to Tramp, and they turned them down, and they just said, thank you so much for your submission, and And then 5 years later, they came to me for a collection. So it's just very interesting how it happens.
So they saw the little bits that you'd published and they said, do you want to put something together?
Yeah.
And were a lot of those stories generated then out of that kind of deadline or opportunity?
Yeah. Yeah, they were written, they were commissioned in June of 2023, and then I wrote them all within 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't even remember it. It was just a kind of a fever dream, and I moved house during that time, and the children were very small, and yeah, I mean, I don't really know.
That's amazing,
Yeah,
because it spans quite a period, and there's this kind of shape to the whole thing. Like it almost
yeah.
has a novelistic shape to it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
that, yeah.
I better keep an eye on time. I think we've time for one more reading. Do we? Yeah, we've 5 minutes. Would we do the last reading?
I'd love to. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I thought I would read to you. I mean, it's so nice to be here in Sligo. Thank you for having me. And I can see some family members at the back there, which I'm trying not to be nervous about. We did. My father is from Sligo, and we would have come here to Ross's Point a lot and visited all the time, and like Knocknarea and Mulligmore, and picnics and Glencar and Bundoran for the fun times. We'd go to Drumcliff, and my father used to get us to guess. He would give he was trying to amuse us on these kind of boring historical trips, and he used to try and get us to guess what the words on Yeats's tombstone meant. Cast a cold eye on life, on death, horsemen pass by. And then we'd all drive ourselves mad trying to get an answer for him, that he would give us money at the end. And it's just such a this. I'm very sentimental about Sligo, but I really do love it here, and I really like even coming in on the train, and it's so kind of dramatic and gloomy and stormy, and my brother has laid roots here now, so I'm just thrilled to be here. So I'll read to you from something that's definitely not set on Ross's Point Beach. This story is called Two Nice People. I was burying my little boy in sand when the policeman came right up to us. He cut out the sea and sky, and I thought, what have I done now? Hello there, he said, bending to our level. He was a shiny, compact kind of a policeman, got up in high-vis, shell tracksuit bottoms, sporty trainers. His summer uniform, I guessed. He didn't wear the hat, but I knew from the badges on his arms and chest. How are things here now? Don't worry, because these days with everything, people might see a policeman and think, oh, I'm in trouble or something. No. I sat up straight and folded up my legs in such a way that he would not see any pubic hair. My swimming togs were very old and didn't fit me properly. How many of them were here this time? I looked around, but it was just this one policeman. I'm Sergeant Pat Horrican, he was saying, or Houlihan O'Halloran. I didn't really want to know his name. I'm on duty up at the station on the main drag, and hello there, is this your little fella? We both looked at the boy, buried to the waist. He was patting imperiously the sand around his body. Sand had got in everywhere, into his hair, his eyes, eyebrows, nostrils. Once he noticed we were watching him, he broke away and walked up to the dune to pick up stones and things. His only piece of clothing was a UV tank top with clouds and rainbows on it, and his little ass was coated in wet sand. We're obviously contented anyway, the policeman said. He looked at me again. Now, it's a hot day and very crowded out here. His eyes were bright like candle flames. His nose and cheeks were sunburned, as if all he did was patrol the beaches. Are you visitors to the area? Or, yeah, I come here all the time. I grew up here. We're not just on holidays. I wanted to convey my separateness out here, and the policeman nodded. He understood. I hear you, not exactly blow-ins. He edged closer on a taut calf muscle. So I just had a call there at the station, and I came to check if you were all right. Oh, somebody came, I thought. A call from a gentleman you may have met on the beach today. A gentleman. I couldn't think of any gentleman. A man who was a little bit concerned. Oh dear. The policeman nodded regretfully. About the two of you here, yes. Oh, the policeman looked inside me now, and I felt very peculiar, very bad, like I was being poisoned by my own friends. The boy was busy, collecting shells, seaweed, bits of rope, and other debris. I saw the sleepy crowds, the tide, white horses, shimmering sea. I'm going to leave it there.
Thank you so much. I've probably left out loads of things that you could have told us, but hopefully with the audience Q&A, we'll get to fill in any gaps. Because I think we're right on time for the Q&A. Or yeah, look at that, 7:15. Any questions for Maggie?
I can see Sheila Armstrong's parents are here as well. She is my cousin, who's a novelist and short story writer who I'm extremely in awe of. But I think, oh, wow. I think she must be in Berlin because she has a really cool life.
Any questions from the audience? I can just go on asking you questions if no one has anything to ask. What did she say? Well, this is probably an awful question. You can just say no comment if it's awful. Are you writing another book? And is it short stories or is it a novel? Or
it's a novel, and it's a hot mess currently. It's on the 0th draft. That's before the first draft, and anything goes. And it's set in a publishing milieu. So
wow,
wish me luck.
I'm really looking forward to it.
It's maybe the third. I've been writing a lot since I published Old Romantics, but nothing of consequence. So this is maybe the third third novel that I've been working on since.
Okay.
And I'm hoping to publish all of them as a
3-part,
as a quartet over the next 40 years. That'll take. Yeah.
I wondered if any of the students have questions about it sounds like what Maggie did was not worry that much about genre, just write. So have an experience, try and figure it out through writing, and then see what it is after. Would that be fair to say? I wonder if that's something that we can take as writers, especially as new writers, from what you've told us, because I think we look at genre a lot, and what are the rules of a novel or a short story, or what do those forms look like? But ultimately, maybe it's just the moral of this tale is just write, is it? And then let it be whatever form it is.
We don't have much time, in the day. We're all under pressure. There's lists, that are multiplying all the time. When you sit at your desk, it's a real privilege. You only have about an hour sometimes every day, so just to bang out the words and do the best you can within that time, and not worry too much about what it's going to look like. It will feel terrible, and you'll be embarrassed by it as you're writing it, but when you look back on it, you'll see that it's not really that bad at all.
Yeah. Or you might see it's bad and then write something else.
I think it'll be better than you thought it was at the time, and it'll be worth doing. It's like yoga. You won't regret having done your warrior, your sun salutes and all that jazz.
It sounds, but I might have got this wrong, that you wanted to write first and foremost. Is that always, or is that something you
Yeah,
learned?
I wanted to do something to do with making something. I would have drawn a lot as a young person. I didn't read books until much later, except for Babysitter Club books. And I was not a good student. I was drawing all the time and singing and you know, in a strictly for the birds in a dreamland, you know. But it certainly landed on I felt that maybe writing would be an interesting way of just expunging some of the madness in my thoughts after a while. And I mean, I would have grown up, there were always a lot of books in the house, there was a lot of literature. My mother was a huge reader, and my father as well. So, and studying English, you know, you get to read great big bricks, the classics, and
So you did go and study English then? From
English in Trinity, and I really felt that I don't have very fond memories of that, actually, because it was all adrenaline, it was cramming, it was learning, there was no creative writing. So I do think that when you're a young person, you should be encouraged to write and create, and to you know, that you have a voice that actually counts, you have something interesting to say. And yeah, I would have, when I read your stories in the Dublin Review when I was younger, I didn't really know of many people,
sure,
my
that was
contemporaries.
Review, that was so long ago.
I know, we're ancient now. But I didn't know there were many the contemporaries of mine who were young women who were writing, and it didn't seem you were the kind of...
It didn't seem like a thing we could do then.
Furrow.
Well, that's
Elske, so thanks.
Exaggeration, but thank you. There's a lovely, we have to go into the music now, but there is a lovely story where Margaret meets is he a writer or a publisher? And she gives him her manuscript, and it's this kind of withering experience.
Yeah.
What does he say to her? You've 60 stories here, and they're all about the same thing?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
So I think that's a great insight into the life of a young writer.
Yeah. And he told me to make a schedule, and sorry, he told the character in the book to write to write a schedule, and you can't just write when you feel like it. You have to do it. You have to make a schedule. So
yeah.
And he also said something interesting, this fictionalized writer. He said that, you know, anyone can go to, say, a city, say London. I wanted to write a novel that was set in London, but I said, what's the point, you know, when there's thousands and thousands of novels set in London? And he said, but only you know how London was for you. No one else shares that emotional experience. That's yours alone. So that really made me think that there is something there's a fingerprint, there's a uniqueness, a specialness, inviolate quality to our emotional responses that should not be left to languish.
Thank you. We have to move to Claudia now. Thank you very much, Maggie.
What a stunning performance. Thanks, Claudia. I'd now like to invite Dean McLaughlin, who's going to introduce the writers for Open Mic.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I want to thank Michelle, Patricia, and all the staff at Sligo County Library, as well as the staff and tutors of the Writing Literature programme at ATU Sligo for keeping these incredible events going. And I also extend my thanks to the audience, especially students who are here tonight. And thank you, Elske and Maggie, for such a brilliant and insightful conversation. It's a great privilege to be presenting the open mic tonight. So without further ado, I ask you all to please give a warm welcome to everyone reading tonight. And our first reader is John Ogue.
Thank you, Dean. So the first poem I have here is a poem version of a Bob Dylan song, "Blowing in the Wind." How many roads to take to be a man? How many streets to pass by? Into the lanes, onto the corridors of life, experiencing life. It is experience which but teaches and instructs. It is life which but makes us feel, if we can feel and take on to, blown in the wind, blown in the wind. The experiences of life harder, so the feeling of man. Blown in the wind and feeling this existence of life on earth, man is what man was, what remains here, how life and the experiences of it, blown in the wind and feeling. The experiences of life teaches us otherwise. The freshness of the wind refreshes it all, ruffles it all, the history of man. Blown in the Wind is a song lyric of the road of life. Where does it take to? Where does it take? The road of life, the road of life. Blown in the wind, he feels it. Feels it? How many roads does a man take to before... How many roads does a man take to before becoming a man, and reaching the pathway? Thank you. My second one is, this one is called The Oak Tree by Johnny Ray Ryder. A mighty wind blew night and day. It stole the oak tree's leaves away, then snapped its boughs and pulled its bark until the oak was tired and stark. But still the oak tree held its ground, while the other trees fell all around. The weary wind gave up and spoke. How can you still be standing, oak? The oak tree said, I know that you can break each branch of mine in two, carry every leaf away, shake my limbs and make me sway. But I have roots stretched in the earth, growing stronger since my birth. You'll never touch them, for you see that they are the deepest part of me. Until today, I wasn't sure of how much I could endure, but now I found, with thanks to you, I'm stronger than I ever knew. And my last one is Warning by Jenny Joseph. When I am an old woman, I shall wear purple with a red hat which doesn't go and doesn't suit me, and I shall spend my pension on brandy and summer gloves and satin sandals and say we've no money for butter. I shall sit down on the pavement when I'm tired and gobble up samples in shops and press alarm bells and run my stick along the public railings and make up for the sobriety of my youth. I shall go out in my slippers in the rain and pick the flowers in other people's gardens and learn to spit. You can wear terrible shirts and grow more fat and eat 3 pounds of sausages at a go, or only bread and pickle for a week, and hoard pens and pencils and beer mats and things in boxes. But now we must have clothes that keep us dry and pay our rent and not swear in the street and set a good example for the children. We must have friends to dinner and read the papers. but maybe I ought to practice a little now, so people who know me are not too shocked and surprised when suddenly I am old and start to wear purple. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John Og. And now our next reader is Oliver.
Thank you very much. I would like to read a poem. I wrote this several years ago. It is called Firstborn Son of a Lastborn Son. I was the bright-eyed baby boy ripped fresh from the warm and the dark and the sweet, with hands that clawed and scraped at the inside walls like dentist tools against gums, and when the surgeon's knife bird-like swooped and pulled apart the flesh, the blood flowed plentiful and hot and watered the ground, and the grass grew high in that place and swung in the wind like a corpse on the gallows. You are a cracked mirror, which is just another way to say you are a prophetic nightmare, a thin-skinned, cold-boned, sharp-edged vision of my own eyes and my own hands and my own face, pulled taut and twisted with the onset of a sickness that is already nestled somewhere deep, deep, deep down inside my body. The sickness that hides in your spit and your sweat and falls onto me in your tears, trailing down my cheeks and into my mouth, sinking its teeth into my soft young bones. This is ours, you tell me. I was the golden child on his knees with open-mouthed prayers that whispered through the night, as I lay awake and afraid, moon-bathed, with dry eyes that fell far into my skull, in the room that was too hot and too small, in the house that was a prison for a while. I inherited the night birds from you, and they brought echoes of you from the grey place far away, carrying in their wings the limp, dead love of the ghost you hadn't yet become. You created a family at the edges of humanity, and never quite pulled it together into something cohesively human. Rather, it became a slick and red-eyed creature, anemic and nocturnal. When they saw what we had become, they laughed with the cruelty of laughter on a playground, and kicked at our heels and scuffed up our boots, and we started to rot in that place where you had carried us, where your miscalculations and your distant cold stare had brought us. Here where we were too close to the source of the illness that seeped into the earth, before you had learned how far you had to run in the opposite direction. I was the firstborn son of a lastborn son, and I was the mother and the father and the roof that creaked above their heads as the rain crept in like a bad man through the window, to drown them all, localized flooding within these four cursed walls. I was the firstborn son of a lastborn son, and I was the floodgates opening heavy and sullen, and I was in the body of every casualty. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Oliver. And our next reader is Sivan.
This is a poem I wrote a couple of years ago called Trail Camera Footage of a Wounded Young Animal. Thick tire tracks slam down, a slight lick up of moss, in the mid-southern wilderness that no one dared cross. Slim whispers slip very much alive through rush and leaves, all silent apart from the slow, sinister rev of engine and stirred crickets. Trail camera footage of a wounded young animal shows antlers caught in fishing wire and a soft chest rising in earnest, still horror. Through glaring white apparition eyes show a driver's seat reflected, a murky spotlit roadside, and a fear of the most honest kind, a trapped and eerie whine. It sits, silent against the fence, attempts to bow its head in surrender to the machinery above. Doe eyes sit alight amidst soft, brown, freckled licks of fur, like little prayer candles before an altar. A broken masculine beauty in its crooked stature, a stature to be contorted in the driver's seat delight. A veiny hand reaches out to touch, a solitary scene. Eyes watery in persistence to keep without blinking, to present as no threat, though a penknife sits warm and comfortable in the breast pocket of his jacket, bouncing against a twin prayer beads. The first cut is brash and fortuitous. The air thickens out with adrenaline, sinks into the low fog already swimming around the surrounding scene. Fight, flight, and freeze pang one note of dissonance into the biting wind, a howl carried out with a repulsive grin. The young animal begins to lose conscious mind around when the first antler comes loose. Blood decorates its temples in a mocking crown of thorns over slip-shut eyelids. The slicing sounds mutate to tight viola strings. Isn't it amazing, the subconscious mind? Alluring nightmares of a prionic kind, all the while a pair of bargaining, molesting hands hew into you and your skull. Thick tire tracks slam down, a prize vigorously bouncing against the passenger seat. Trail camera footage shows a wounded young animal, hysterical, absent to fragments of its skull, left for roadkill by the marsh. The circle of life comes back around to haunt you, how precious life and how persistent death, how the young and innocent does not preserve, to exsanguination and rot it does turn. Though antlers stay polished, alive on the wall, of the wounded young animal there's no remnants at all.
Thank you, Siobhan. And now I'd like to introduce Jane.
I'm going to do a wee song. Black is the color of my true love's hair. Her lips are like her rose so fair. She's the sweetest smile and the gentlest hands. I love the ground whereon she stands. I love my love, and well she knows. I love the ground whereon she goes, and how I wish the day it would come while she and I could be as one. I go to the Clyde, and I mourn and weep, for satisfied I never can be. I write her a letter, just a few short lines, and suffer death 1,000 times. Black is the color of my true love's hair. Her lips are like her rose so fair. She's the sweetest smile and the gentlest hands. I love the ground whereon she stands. I love the ground whereon she stands.
Thank you, Jane. Now, finally, I'm just going to read a few little pieces that I've wrote. So the first of the two is a series of two connected haikus that I've written in dedication of children in conflict, but especially for the people of Palestine. So, Serenity. The flowers blossom. Children are running through fields. The sun slowly falls. Desolation. Missiles are flying. The town meets a bright eclipse. A great scream echoes. Thank you. And so the final little poem I'm going to read is a little memoir poem called To Read. Hands fidgeting, eyes staring down, the little boy fades in the crowd. The grown-ups sift through the fruit aisles. His grandmother greets them all, but he just wants to escape. She takes him to a small red building. He promises to be quiet, though that isn't too difficult. The place feels like an ominous cave. He can hear a man's keys dropping to the floor, but still he wants to escape. He sniffles as the dust from the carpet invades his nostrils, but the covers displayed on the window entice him. There's a blue book with ships riding the tidal waves, and a little Viking, as timid as he is, scared out of his wits. He flicks through the pages as the radiator squeaks beside him. The grown-ups rummage through the newspapers. At last, he has finally escaped. He escapes to worlds of rabbits and cabbage fields, of adventurous children exploring the countryside, of cunning fairies and devious spies. It's a summer that passes by too fast. And still, when the weariness seeps in, when bombardments of questions flutter, or the crushing toll of self-doubt, I hold onto the escape of worlds and narratives, the ones brought to life by a keyboard and paper. Thank you very much.
What a lovely evening. And thank you, Maggie and Elske, for the engaging conversation and the well-chosen pieces you read so beautifully, Maggie. Thank you, Claudia, for the beautiful, memorable music throughout the evening. And thank you to Dean and everyone who participated in the open mic. Thank you also to the crew from Studio Rove for the tech support this evening. Before we go to our final song, some brief Sligo Library announcements. Family time at your library will be running throughout December. There's weekly toddle time and special guest events, so please spread the word. The 2026 schedule of events will include digital skills classes, book clubs, Kirkle Choro, craft events, and much more. There are sign-up sheets at the library desk if you wish to leave your details to be notified of future events. You can also follow us on social media and the Sligo Library's website to see what's scheduled. And if you're not already a member of Sligo Libraries, please join. You can do so online and then collect your card from the library. And there are some fantastic e-resources and e-learning on the website. So our next edition of The Word will take place on Wednesday, the 25th of February 2026, featuring writer and broadcaster Vincent Woods in conversation with Keith Hopper. So enjoy the closing music for this evening. Gur Mahagav Galer, Slánawália agus Ihawa.
but I don't show what I can't show. How fond I grew of your soul, of your soul, your kind soul. Well, this you sure must see, how it's for me, how it's for me. The love I have for thee, have for thee, have for thee. How can I let go of you now? All my dreams are out of you now. If I was brave and wise, know the skies would sails have turned to rise, turned to rise, turned to rise. The winds that not we know, through waters wide and high and low, our land it didn't show. Thank you very much.